Hello everyone, in this video we will discuss cytoplasm, structure of plasma membrane and its functions. Now let us begin with cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is part of the protoplasm which surrounds the nucleus. And this cytoplasm occupies the space between nuclear membrane and plasma membrane. Cytoplasm occupies the space between nuclear membrane and plasma membrane. And when we see the chemical composition of cytoplasm, it is made up of different type of components. The cytoplasm contains mainly 90% of water, 7% of proteins, (2% of carbohydrates and lipids, and 1% of inorganic materials, minerals and vitamins, etc. This is the chemical composition of cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm contains tiny living parts cytoplasm contains tiny living parts or called as cell organelles. And these cell organelles has characteristic shape and functions. These cell organelles has specific shape and functions. Now let us see the role of cytoplasm. Main role of cytoplasm is intracellular distribution of nutrients. Intracellular distribution of nutrients, metabolites, enzymes, etc. And the another important role, cytoplasm helps in exchange of cytoplasm helps in exchange of materials between cell organelles. And cytoplasm is the site of glycolysis. Site of glycolysis. This is the first step of respiration. Now let us discuss about plasma membrane and its structure. Plasma membrane is also called as cell membrane or plasma lemma. Now let me write the definition of plasma membrane. In shortcut I am taking it as PM, which means plasma membrane is a living, thin, elastic and delicate outermost covering of the animal cell and inner to the cell wall in plant cells. In living cells, plasma membrane acts as selectively permeable membrane. Selectively permeable membrane, and it also acts as semi-permeable membrane and impermeable membrane. Here we should remember that the plasma membrane in living cells mostly acts as the selectively permeable membrane. Now first let us discuss about structure of plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is made up of phospholipids and proteins, and little amounts of glycolipids and glycoproteins. And the thickness of plasma membrane is about 75 angstroms. And here the structure of plasma membrane was explained by the different scientists. The widely accepted model of plasma membrane is fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane, and this model was proposed by the two scientists Singer and Nicholson. Fluid mosaic model. For example, if we talk about Earth, to study about Earth structure, we will take a model, that is globe. We use globe as a model to study the Earth structure. Similarly, to study the structure of plasma membrane, different scientists proposed different models. The widely accepted model, which is proposed by Singer and Nicholson, was fluid mosaic model. In the year of 1972, this fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane was proposed by the two scientists Singer and Nicholson, and these two scientists explained the ultrastructure of plasma membrane. These two scientists explained the ultrastructure of plasma membrane. According to this fluid mosaic model, protein molecules are sandwiched in between lipid bilayer. As we have already seen here, the plasma membrane is made up of phospholipids and proteins, and here the phospholipid molecules are present in the two layers. In between the two layers of phospholipid molecules, proteins are sandwiched. Now let us see how are these phospholipid molecules are present in the two layers. Here I am taking a rough diagram. This is one phospholipid molecule, like this. Many phospholipid molecules are arranged in two layers. Now let me draw the another layer of phospholipid molecules. Like this, phospholipid molecules are arranged in two layers. Between these lipid bilayers, the protein molecules are embedded like this. Finally, the phospholipid molecules are arranged like this in two layers. Between these two layers, we can see here some white colored molecules are visible. These are protein molecules. So this is why I have given here a statement: protein molecules. So this is a protein molecule. These are the protein molecules are sandwiched in between the lipid bilayer. So this is one lipid layer and this is the another lipid layer. So between these two lipid bilayers, protein molecules are embedded, and on the surface of the plasma membrane also protein molecules are embedded. Now let me label all these parts. This is one layer and this is the another layer of phospholipids. So these two layers of phospholipids is called phospholipid bilayer. In between these phospholipid bilayers, integral or intrinsic proteins are present. So these are integral or intrinsic proteins. On the surface of the plasma membrane also some proteins are present. We call these proteins as extrinsic or external proteins. And if in each phospholipid bilayer, if you take one single phospholipid molecule, so here I am taking one phospholipid molecule, in one phospholipid molecule we can see the two parts. One is the head part and this is the tail part. So this head part is hydrophilic in nature. So this is why this head part is called as hydrophilic head of phospholipid molecule. Hydrophilic. Let me label here. This is the hydrophilic head of phospholipid molecule. And this is called hydrophobic tail of phospholipid molecule. Hydrophobic tail of phospholipid molecule. Sir, what is this hydrophilic and hydrophobic regions in plasma membrane structure? Hydrophilic head of phospholipid molecule is water lovable, and whereas this tail part is hydrophobic in nature. So this is water repelling end. Sir, what is the main function of this plasma membrane? It helps in the exchange of nutrients, that is between the adjacent cells or inside the cell cytoplasm and outside the cell. But here when we see the hydrophilic head of phospholipid molecule, it allows the water to pass through the plasma membrane, but when the water reaches to these tail regions, it is hydrophobic in nature, so that it will not allow the passage of water. So even this area also, this is water lovable and it can allow the passage of water, but when it reaches to this area, the tail does not allow the passage of water. So in such cases, the integral proteins present between these two lipid layers and the extrinsic proteins helps in the transport of water and water soluble substances inside the cell cytoplasm or outside the cell. Now let me show you the structure of plasma membrane diagram here. Here this one is the diagram which I have made, the rough diagram. Now see, here it is the structure of plasma membrane, how the phospholipid molecules are arranged in two layers. This is the one layer of phospholipid molecule and this is the another layer of phospholipid molecule. So this is why these two are called as phospholipid bilayers. So between these two layers, the integral proteins and surface proteins, extrinsic proteins are present. And even we can see on the surface of the plasma membrane, glycolipids, glycoproteins, carbohydrates are present, and here we can see the cholesterol also. And this is towards the cell cytoplasm. This is the extracellular space outside the cell. And this glycoprotein, it has protein part and carbohydrate part. Glycolipid also has carbohydrate part and lipid part. And inside the cytoplasm, there is a cytoskeleton present. Now here first let me write a statement. Integral or intrinsic proteins and extrinsic proteins helps in transport of water and water soluble substances across the plasma membrane. Integral and extrinsic proteins helps in transport of water and water soluble substances across the plasma membrane. Here you may get one doubt, sir, why are these integral and extrinsic proteins are involved in the transportation of water and water soluble substances inside the cell cytoplasm or outside the cell cytoplasm across the plasma membrane? This is because of, just now I have told you, in each phospholipid molecule the head part is only allows the passage of water, but when the water reaches to this tail portion, this is hydrophobic in nature. Here phobia, which means fear. So fear of what? Fear of water. So this, when the water or water soluble substances reaches to this area and this area, they will not allow the passage of water. So in such cases, the transport of water and water soluble substances occur through the integral and extrinsic proteins. Okay. Now let us look at the filamentous structures present in cytoplasm. They are in contact with the plasma membrane. Sir, what are cytoskeletons? Let me write here. Cytoskeleton, here we can see this is look like a network filamentous structures, the network of protein filaments, and they look like tubules also. Protein filaments and tubules in the cytoplasm of all the living cells. They will provide a particular shape and support to the cells. Let me write here: cytoskeleton, a microscopic network of protein filaments and tubules in the cytoplasm of many living cells giving them shape and coherence. And here the cytoskeleton extends from the cell nucleus to the cell membrane. Cytoskeleton extends from cell nucleus to the cell membrane. After this, let us discuss about functions of plasma membrane. The main functions of plasma membrane: holding cell contents, plasma membrane holds the semi-fluid protoplasmic contents. Another function of plasma membrane is protection. Protects animal cells from injury, and in plant cells it provides extra protection and support. And in plant cells it provides extra protection and support. Another function individuality. Plasma membrane maintains form and individuality of the cell. It maintains form and individuality of the cell. Next, organelles. The cell membrane delimits a number of subcellular structures or organelles like nucleus. It is the largest cell structure. Next, mitochondria, plastids, Golgi apparatus. Plasma membrane delimits a number of subcellular structures. Subcellular structures, which means the tiny living structures present inside the cell. Plasma membrane delimit a number of subcellular structures like nucleus, mitochondria, plastids, etc. Another function is cell recognition. On the surface of plasma membrane, we discussed that there are certain glycolipids and glycoproteins present. So with the help of these glycolipids and glycoproteins, the plasma membrane differentiate similar cells from dissimilar ones. So the foreign substances and tissues from the familiar materials can be easily recognized, and this cell recognition is useful for tissue formation and defense mechanism against the entry of microorganisms. with the help of glycolipids and glycoproteins, plasma membrane recognizes the entry of microbes, and it is useful for defense mechanism. Again is the entry of microorganisms. After this, antigens. The cell membrane possesses antigens which determine the blood grouping, that is acceptance or rejection of a particular blood during the blood transfusion. Cell membranes possess antigens which determine blood grouping. Acceptance or rejection of a transplant. Another function, cell junctions. The cell junctions are formed by modification of plasma membrane, and it helps in keeping animal cells together. The cell junctions are formed by modification of plasma membrane, and help in keeping animal cells together. In previous classes we discussed about the cell junctions. Two adjacent animal cells are connected by the desmosomes. So these are known as cell junctions. They are formed by the modification of plasma membrane, so that it helps in keeping the two animal cells together. Whereas in plant cells, the two adjacent plant cells are connected by the plasmodesmata, but in animal cells, the two adjacent animal cells are connected by the cellular junctions, and those junctions are called as desmosomes, that we have already discussed. So let me write here one example. Desmosomes, these are modifications of plasma membrane. Another function of plasma membrane is, in certain body parts, like in the digestive system, small finger-like projections present on the inner lining of the small intestine are called as microvilli. Now let me write microvilli. These are membrane evaginations which are specialized for increasing absorption. And here we can also take alveoli. So alveoli are the sac-like structures present in the lungs. These are the modifications of plasma membrane, and these alveoli increases surface area for the diffusion of the gases. The another last function of plasma membrane, membrane transport. Plasma membrane permits the entry and exit of some materials in the cells. Plasma membrane permits the entry and exit of some materials in the cells. So it also prevents movement of some other materials. Therefore, the plasma membrane is called as selectively permeable membrane. So I have already shown that the plasma membrane acts as selectively permeable, semi-permeable and impermeable. In living cells, the plasma membrane acts as the selectively permeable membrane. The selectively permeable membrane allows selected solute and solvent particles inside the cell or outside the cell. So this is why it is called as selectively permeable membrane. So this is about cytoplasm, role of cytoplasm, plasma membrane, structure of plasma membrane, and finally the functions of plasma membrane.